The bar was alive that night, louder than usual, even by its own rowdy standards. Cigarette smoke clung to the ceiling, curling into the dim glow of worn-out bulbs. The air carried the scent of cheap whiskey and fried food, with a constant chorus of clinking glass and laughter laced with profanity. It was a place where shadows were welcome, where the rough edges of life could rub against each other without shame. Men leaned heavy on the counters with leather jackets and ink that told stories of their own battles, some real, some imagined. To most, it was a sanctuary for the loud and the reckless. But behind the counter, where orders were scribbled and trays carried, there were people the world rarely noticed. Quiet souls who worked without applause, who slipped in and out of the noise like ghosts. Among them was Emily. She was not remarkable at first glance. Her uniform was simple: jeans and a plain white button-up shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows from long hours of work. Her hair was tied back neatly, though strands always escaped to brush against her tired face. She moved with purpose, quick and efficient, never wasting emotion. Most customers didn't know her name. To them, she was just the waitress, the one who refilled their drinks and cleaned their spills. Yet for those who paid closer attention, there was something different about her. A quiet grace. A humility that seemed out of place in a bar where noise ruled. She rarely spoke unless spoken to, but her eyes carried depth, calm on the surface, but with storms hidden far below. Beneath her tired smile was a silence weighted with secrets. That night, when the rumble of motorcycle engines echoed outside, the atmosphere shifted. Heads turned as a pack of bikers pushed their way in, the air seeming to shrink around their presence. They laughed too loudly, jostling each other as if the whole bar belonged to them. Their boots thudded heavy on the wooden floor, their voices cutting across conversations. They were predators entering a pasture, and every regular felt the air tighten. Emily kept her head down, focusing on her trays. She'd seen men like this before, loud, restless, hungry for attention. She moved quickly, quietly, hoping they wouldn't notice her. But fate has a cruel way of seeking out the quiet ones. One of the bikers, tall and broad, tattoos crawling up his thick arms like vines, leaned back in his chair. His smirk was cruel, practiced, the kind of grin meant to provoke. He watched Emily move, his eyes following her until he grew bored with the sound of his own laughter. "Hey, sweetheart," he called out, his voice booming across the bar. "Why don't you smile for me? You'd look prettier if you smiled." Emily didn't stop. She set down a tray, collected empty bottles, and walked on, as though his words had dissolved into the smoke around her. The men at his table chuckled. The biker leaned forward, calling louder. Insults now. Words sharper, testing her composure. Emily gave no reaction. Not a glance. Not a word. Her silence was her shield, and it only stoked his pride. Pride, for men like him, is a fragile thing. And when silence refused to bow to his noise, his anger boiled over. In one swift, reckless motion, he reached out as she passed, grabbing her shirt by the collar. Before anyone could move, the sound of fabric tearing cut through the bar. Gasps followed. Some laughed, others looked away. Emily stood frozen, her shirt hanging open under the weight of his cruelty. But then the laughter stopped. What the crowd expected to see was weakness, humiliation, maybe shame. What they saw instead silenced even the rowdiest drunk. Across Emily's chest, etched in bold ink, was the emblem of the United States Marine Corps. It wasn't just a tattoo. It was a declaration. A story written in pain and fire. It spoke of battles fought, of courage carved into flesh, of sacrifices deeper than scars. The biker's hand faltered. His smirk faltered. His bravado, built on mocking the weak, shattered when he realized he was staring not at a victim, but at a warrior. The room went still. Even the jukebox in the corner seemed to fade into silence. Emily didn't flinch. Her breathing was steady, her eyes unblinking, as though she had weathered storms far greater than this. The biker let go, stepping back. His hand shook, his grin evaporated. For the first time that night, he looked small, dwarfed not by size, but by something heavier. By honor. By a truth he couldn't touch. The men at his table shifted uncomfortably. Some looked down. Others rubbed their necks or glanced away, ashamed for laughing, ashamed for following his lead. The room, once brimming with noise, now bowed beneath a silence that demanded respect. Emily didn't speak. She didn't scold, didn't gloat. She simply pulled her shirt together, straightened her posture, and returned to her work as if nothing had happened. That quiet dignity spoke louder than anything she could have said. And in that moment, the bar saw her differently. She was no longer just the quiet waitress who refilled their drinks. She was a Marine. A survivor. A woman who had faced battles they could never imagine and still carried herself with grace. What none of them knew was the weight that tattoo carried. Emily hadn't enlisted for glory. She hadn't joined because of patriotism posters or promises of medals. She enlisted because poverty had pressed her into a corner, because her life before the Marines had already been a war of its own. The Corps gave her an escape, a chance to fight for something beyond survival. The training forged her in fire. She endured nights filled with fear, days where exhaustion was her only companion. She lost friends, good people, taken too soon by battles that never left the headlines. She lived moments when survival felt like a borrowed blessing. And when it was over, when she came home, she carried it all with her. Not in visible wounds, but in the silence behind her eyes. She worked small jobs. She blended in. She never spoke of the tattoo, because it was more than pride, it was pain burned into her skin. But that night, her truth was laid bare for all to see. The biker who had mocked her never returned to that bar. Whether it was shame or fear, no one knew. But those who had witnessed the moment never forgot. In a single act, Emily had reminded them all that true strength isn't loud. It isn't cruel. It's quiet. Steady. Unyielding. Days passed. Whispers of the story spread through town. Strangers who once ignored her now nodded with gratitude. Some stopped to thank her for her service, though she never asked for thanks. Slowly, people began to realize that they had overlooked the strength she carried all along. But even as the town respected her, Emily's battles never ended. She still woke from restless nights haunted by memories she couldn't silence. Loneliness settled deep in her bones. The job at the bar wasn't just a paycheck, it was her anchor. A way to keep her mind occupied, to drown